I'm Stuart Bloor and this is my granddaughter Naya. Welcome to my brand new angling channel on YouTube, and this is the very first video. There's a series on winter fishing and I'm going to be doing some carp fishing to start with. They do say don't go on the stage with animals and children. Anyway, I'm off down the lake now, minus Naya of course, although when she's older no doubt she will be coming with me, so enjoy the video. I'm now fishing, got a couple of rods out, probably see there to the side of me, fishing off a pod. I'm not fishing too far from the bank, fishing with pop-ups. I'll talk you through my bait approach during the course of the video, pass on a few tips, perhaps encourage you to get out yourself, and hopefully we'll get a fish or two for the camera. Am I confident? Yes, I am confident today. This is the time of the year where it doesn't suddenly become winter overnight. You don't go to bed when it's autumn and wake up in winter. There's a merging of the seasons. And as I'm here on the lake, I've noticed that there are trees that are still in green leaf. There are those that have definite fall colours, but there are also trees that have totally shed their leaves. That's the time of the year. It's a great time of the year, isn't it? Early winter, you could say late autumn, but early winter. Water temperatures are still at a reasonable level. I'll talk you through all that later and show you what today's temperature is. The fish are still munching away. We haven't had the frosts and the harsh weather that really does make fishing difficult. And when I said earlier I was confident, well, of course, all of those reasons, all of those factors come together, should make us confident when we're out at this time of the year. There are many important factors in a successful fishing session. One of them, of course, is bait. And I think it's important to put a lot of thought and preparation into what bait you decide to go for on the session that you're on. And so when we think about preparation, it doesn't just happen the moment we arrive on the bank and we have a look around the lake to see what's happening, but really it should be in our thoughts a day before, 2 days before, 3 days before, whatever, as we think about that particular session that we're going to be on, and in particular, of course, thinking about our bait. So I've given my bait a lot of thought for this particular time. We might have our favourite boilies, for example, but it doesn't mean to say that those boilies will work everywhere. We have to think about the session, think about the time of the year, think about previous visits there. All those factors we take into consideration, and then we settle on what we're going to use. On one rod I'm fishing with the premium pop-up range. As you can see there, it's a nice standout boilie without being too much over the top. That's important on some venues. That's an M2 and I'll be fishing that, or I'm fishing that because I've got the rods out, on one rod. On the other I'm fishing with lobworm boilie. Again, it's SBS, you can see there, 16mm to the camera. Perhaps not very clear, but you can see I've just got a few left in that tub. And this tub I've actually had a few years, as you can see. It's old package there, but it still works. The boilies are still okay. I dip the boilies, soak the boilies as well, so that they take on extra flavour, and no problem with that. I'm fishing in PVA bags to cast out, and in those bags I'm putting some loose boilies, as you can see here, hold up to the camera. Those are the lobworm ones, and I've also got some M2 for the other bag. I'm fishing a few loose boilies, but also I'm putting in with the PVA bag some proactive pellets. What I like about this particular range of pellets is that, and I'm holding now for the camera, you can see there's lots of different types, different sizes, and so the breakdown is over a period of time. Some of them start to break down within minutes, pretty much immediately. Others take much longer, and I like that because it means there's something constantly happening in the swim over a period of time. So I'll put those in with the PVA bag. depending on how the session goes, I may catapult some out. I've got some ground bait as well that I'm going to put out, and I'll talk you through that in a short time. So that's my bait approach for today. The ground bait that I mentioned is actually Flumino, you can see it there, and when I mix that in with some lake water, I will also add some corn steep liquor. It's an old traditional carp favourite, isn't it? And the reason why I want to put some ground bait out is obviously to attract the carp and to keep the carp feeding in the area, but also to attract smaller fish. Now that might seem an odd thing to say if you're trying to catch a decent sized carp, that you want to bring small fish into the swim, such as roach or tench even. You get those feeding at this time of the year sometimes, perch, all sorts of fish that you can bring into the swim. I'm a great believer that a crowd attracts a crowd, and so I might have a load of roach in there, just 2 or 3 ounces, feeding away, but that will give the carp the confidence to come in and also to start feeding. So I have no issues at all with smaller fish coming into the swim when I'm after carp. In fact, I welcome it and try to encourage it, because if there's a passing carp, maybe a wary old creature that's been caught a few times, and it sees all this activity going on, all these smaller fish feeding on the ground bait that I've put in, then that might just be that little bit of an extra confidence thing for that fish to come in and start to feed itself. And of course I'm going to catch it. Well, that's a plan anyway. We have to have a plan, and hopefully that plan's going to come together today. After a long wait, I'm finally into a fish. It's not a big one at all. I can see it in the water, but it's very welcome. And I'll tell you something, it might look like, well, it looks like a tench. No, I think it's a carp, just a small one. But I've been struggling so far. Yeah, it's a carp. So it's very, very welcome. I'm just about to net it. So unless I get the dreaded hook pull, I've got my first fish of the session in the net. As I said, just a small fish, small common there, but very, very welcome, because it means that I haven't blanked. And of course you can't determine the size of the fish that picks up your boilie, can you? And I am fishing with 16mm to try and avoid some of those smaller fish, but the principle that I mentioned earlier in the video of a crowd attracting a crowd definitely worked in this case, because prior to netting that carp, or should I say prior to hooking that carp, I did notice lots of small fish activity in the swim. This particular lake is notorious for letting you know that there are fish feeding in the swim via bubbles coming up. So I saw lots of activity from smaller fish, so I knew it was a matter of time before the carp moved in. So the plan worked. Obviously I would have liked a much bigger fish, but nevertheless I'm still happy with that, and I've probably got a couple of hours now till dark. So you never know, do you? Might get a bonus one, because one is always a good start. Might get a bonus one for the camera. This particular place is one of my favourite winter venues, because I know that there's always a good chance of catching a carp when perhaps other places aren't doing very well at all. This one is always up there. In fact, I've never blanked on here, but if you noticed earlier in the video, I showed the water temperature, and that was 10.9 Celsius, and that has been the lowest reading that I've had since way back in April, as we were coming out of the severe winter. So of course the temperature has dropped considerably, not in one particular night, there hasn't been a frost or anything, but over a period of time it has dropped quite considerably from the 20s that we were getting in the summer. So of course that does affect the fish, and you have to take that into account. I did say at the beginning that I was confident. Well, I'm always confident. You have to be, don't you, when you're going fishing. If you're at home thinking to yourself, I'm going out and I am going to blank, then in all honesty, you've already blanked before you've set out. You have to be confident, but of course, within that confidence, it has to be within the framework of realism. You have to be realistic. So on a day like today, when I took the water temperature and I saw what it was, I thought to myself, if I can catch one carp or two possibly, you know, the second would be a bonus. I've already had the one. If I could catch a couple of carp today, then I would definitely be happy with that. You have to set your targets realistically in account with the conditions and what the water's doing at that particular time. But I can see some bubbles out there as I speak, so I'm still hopeful of catching another carp, and maybe a bigger one this time. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Into fish number 2. This one was on the M2 boilie. Again, just a small carp. And I'm bringing it to the net now. Slipping it over. And there it is. Let's get on the unlucky mat and show it to the camera. Oops, flapping around. As you can see there, no doubt here on the umbrella, it's raining quite heavily now. It's been tough today. Obviously the continuing drop in water temperatures to just above 10.9 has been a major factor. But the reality is that you'll never catch unless your bait's in the water. And I have had 2, so quite happy with that. I've got me another 30 minutes or so now till it gets time to pack away. As you heard that little indicator there on the bite alarm, I have been getting some small fish picking up the boilies. So they're out there. The crowd's been attracting a crowd, that's for sure. I managed to capture the tape there, didn't I? I saw a little bit of movement on the anger and I thought I will just film it. I thought it was a small fish picking it up, but then I had to drop back, lift it into it, and I've got a carp on the end. Just another small one. I haven't caught any big fish today, but sometimes it's good just to catch, isn't it? And assuming I can get this into the net, of course, this will be the 3rd one. And it will be the 2nd one on M2, so that now goes into the lead. Yep, there it is. Well, that one's gone back. The rain's been coming down quite heavily now for a while, but that doesn't bother the fish. They're wet already. It's only us, isn't it, that have to put up with all these conditions. But the reality is, unless you get your bait in the water, you'll never stand a chance of catching a fish. And I think today I've shown that, haven't I, in conditions that probably a lot of anglers wouldn't venture out into. But I've caught those fish and I'm really happy with that. I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed making it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel on YouTube, and if you're on Twitter or Facebook, then you can connect with me on there. You can find the links to those accounts that I've got on my YouTube channel. If you're out and about yourself, tight lines, I've done some other sessions for carp, of course, and I'm going to end the video now with some photographs from those outings. Tight lines.